Hello, good evening. I would like to call to order the Town of North Andover Finance Committee meeting, February 25th, 2026. If everyone please join me for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. First, before we start, I would like to acknowledge our new member who's joining us tonight, Michelle Nadeau. Thank you, Michelle, for stepping up and filling a vacancy. I'll thank Dustin Silk for his contributions to our committee for the last couple of years, but he has had some work and family obligations that have made it difficult for him. So he's decided to step down, and we're very fortunate that Michelle was able to jump right in and join our committee at the last minute. Michelle, maybe if you want to say a couple words about yourself. And
I have been on the Finance Committee before, back in 2012. I did move out of town, so that's why I wasn't able to continue in that role. And prior to that, I was very involved in a lot of budget reviews with the schools, and have a pretty good grasp for some of the things and how the processes work, but I have been out of the loop for a while. So, patience as I catch up.
Ride the bike, don't worry.
Yes.
we very much appreciate the expertise you bring and the history that you have, and I know you'll be a great asset to the committee. So thank you for stepping up and taking the obligation. Okay, so with that, do we have any public comment? We do not. So we'll get right to business. I'm super excited for our agenda tonight to hear from our town manager and our superintendent about the proposed budget for FY27. So we'll start off with you, Melissa.
Sure. I just want to note that I have the wrong date on the slide. And tomorrow's my daughter's birthday, and that's tomorrow's date. So I think that's what I was doing. I don't know, but it's fine. It's all good. All right. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I'm here with our finance director, Dennis, and we are going to go over the fiscal year 27 budget. I am going to get down to basics on some things just for people at home or anyone who's new this year on the committee. But I will just kind of lay the table. This is, I want to say, it's not a boring budget. This is not a very exciting budget. It's very much level to decrease services. So there's really no new initiatives or anything like that. So I just want to warn you before we get started. Oh, and also we ramped up our game on our slides this year. So we're very excited about it. So, right? It's got gold. I know. I'm very proud of it. So this is just a breakdown of what our budget process looks like. So as you know, starting in around September, October timeframe, the Revenue and Fixed Cost Committee starts meeting. The special committee, I think, only exists in North Andover. It's 2 members of the Finance Committee, 2 members of the school department, and 1 town accountant, Kyle, from the town. They advise the town manager on what the revenues for the following year are going to look like and where they think the fixed costs will stand. We bring those forward and issue guidance based on that committee's advice, as well as anything else that we learn as we go along. That guidance is issued to the schools and the town departments. They both do their work of creating their budgets. On our end, we meet with every department head, have a budget hearing with them, go through requests. The schools, the superintendent creates a budget, which is then approved by the school committee. They both come together into one compiled budget, which we then send to you and the select board. As you know, we are really kind of in the midst of that right now. March 9th, the warrant closes, so soon, and we will be having additional financial articles that will come before you as we go through that process, and then the final step is town meeting in May. This is a breakdown of the fiscal year 27 revenues, so you can see that for real estate taxes, we're going about 5.38%. For our state aid, we level fund, as you know, every year. For local receipts, we're going up by about 2.09, so very little. One of the reasons for that, and I'll get into a little bit later too, is that we took a little bit out of our interest income, knowing that interest rates are starting to kind of tamper off a little bit. And then transfers and others are our transfers from our enterprise funds for water and sewer. So the fiscal year 27 budget, 4.5% increase from the last fiscal year, total $143 million, not including any free cash that we're using for reserves and capital. Capital you've already seen, reserves you'll see as the warrant comes forward. This is a breakdown of what our revenue sources look like. So you can see that really the vast majority of our budget is built on the tax base. Of that, about 75% is residential. And that's actually a huge swing from where we've been previously. So last year, we were at 85% residential. The year before that, it was 84% residential. And the reason it's now dropped to the 70-25 split is really because of Amazon. So just a kind of reclaimer on what levy and new growth are. Levy is the amount of revenue that the town can raise through our real and personal property taxes. Proposition 2.5 is a law that dictates that a town can only increase that tax levy by 2%, 2.5% each year plus any new growth. That levy is actually calculated annually by the state. And the new growth is any new tax levy on top of the 2.5%, and that's gained through new development. And so if you redo your windows in your house, that's not new growth. But if we have a new house go up, that is new growth. Or if we have a business that's completely rehabbed, that counts as new growth. So this is an idea of what our new growth has looked like historically. As you can see, really most of the trigger has been Amazon over the last few years with not only their real estate taxes, which the TIF is now into effect for, but also their personal property. So this one shows with Amazon. This is our 10-year growth without Amazon. What I think is kind of telling for me is if you look at this one, we're looking at numbers between $1 million and $7 million. When you pull Amazon out, you're looking at 100,000 to 900,000. This year, we only had one new residential home. We usually account for 3 or 4. So it certainly is relatively stagnant when you start looking at our new growth without Amazon. And then this shows just the Amazon growth. When you review those 5-year averages without considering Amazon, we're really around the $730,000 point. We aren't seeing a lot of new construction. There's no new permits really that are showing at this point. We've got the 40B project, which likely could be permitted for next year if it passes. We have the building across the street from Town Hall, but nothing else really that is kind of showing right now. And typically, when we're looking at new growth, what we would think to ourselves is if something was going to be showing in the next year or two, they'd already be in conversations, they'd already be in front of the planning board, they'd already be talking to the building commissioner. And so, that kind of is something that we watch. One thing that's really interesting about Amazon is that in 2024, we had about $4.7 million come on in personal property due to their robotics in minimal inventory. And then in 25, the personal property increase was due to their inventory, right? So one of the things that was kind of interesting is that when we first did the TIF, without realizing that their robotics were always going to need to be replaced, right? We thought that we would see kind of things even out. The TIF would start to decrease. They would pay more on the real estate side, but their personal property would depreciate because that's usually what we see. But instead, we're thinking more that their robotics are going to have an economic life of 5 to 7 years, and so we're going to continue to see replacements. And so we're looking at about a 20% increase, a 20% replacements a year. So kind of interesting as we're watching this play out. I don't think we have enough data yet to really know what the long term looks like, right? We're only 2 years past the TIF going into effect. Is it even 2? 2, a year and a half past the TIF going into effect. So over the long term, it's gonna be really interesting to see how this plays out. And there's not a lot of other places to compare it to, which makes it even harder.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that.
Yeah.
Well, you said that before.
Yeah.
Didn't you say Amazon was talking to the state trying to negotiate to lower it?
So they are at the appellate tax board. They have applied to the appellate tax board. We have not had our hearing yet. Just some old vocabulary. No one get nervous. We're not asking for either of these this year, but we want to make sure people remember what they are. So we have an override. It's a permanent increase to the levy. It's for operating needs. It requires a majority vote of town meeting and an election, and that election can only be called by the select board. So you can't have a citizen petition to call for an override election. Then we also have an exclusion. An exclusion can be for debt or for a single capital project. So sometimes what you'll see is we're going to take the debt for a new police station over 30 years, or you might see we're going to buy a fire truck. We don't need to bond that over 30 years. We're just going to raise taxes for 1 year and pay that $1.7 million in that 1 year. An exclusion is temporary until the project or debt is paid off. It requires a 2/3 vote at town meeting, so more than an override, and a majority at an election.
And I think just important to note too that one of them is temporary and one of them is permanent.
Yes.
And maybe you could just explain what happens when it's permanent and maybe that business or that thing leaves, then well, I'll let you say it.
Yep, so once you increase your budget by any amount, let's say that we got a new Walmart in town, and they came in and they opened up a building, and they filled it with all of their fixtures, and there was $3 million in new taxes because of them. Your levy never goes down, your levy only increases, right, by that 2.5%. So, unless you hit your levy ceiling, we don't have to worry about that. So if Walmart then closed and left, right, that $3 million would always be on the levy,
Right.
but it would then be dispersed to everybody else to pay.
I just think that's important that everybody understands that.
And it's the same thing with an override, right? If you have more people
Right.
to pay for an override, when you first take the override, it gets spread out amongst more people.
Yep.
But an override is forever, and you continue to get your 2.5% on top of your override amount moving forward. So levy capacity, we've had a lot of talk about this the last couple of years. When we decide that we're going to set our levy below what our levy limit is, that means that we have capacity. In this budget, the fiscal year 27 budget that we're presenting to you today, I almost said fiscal year 28. I'm moving years, I'm changing dates. We have $3.7 million in capacity. Again, it's due to Amazon, it's due to that inventory that came on. We're using it to pay for the debt for Kittredge and the Fire Station 3, which we're proposing at this Maytown meeting. And so we're going to take a vote at this Maytown meeting to take debt that would be paid for using this $3.7 million. So it's hard. We keep calling it earmarked or bookmarked, because once we approve that, right, we're not going to be able to spend that $3.7 million. We would need an exclusion, but it's going to show as capacity. And so I just want people to be aware, until we get those projects moving, 2028, 2029, you're going to see some amount of capacity, but it's really not there. This is the fiscal year 27 budget expenditures. So you can see that the public schools are going, and they're going to talk a little bit more about what their budget looks like, is going up by 4.47. We've level funded Greater Lawrence and Essex Tech. This is going to be a really interesting year for both Greater Lawrence and Essex Tech, because they went to the new lottery system for their enrollment. And so Greater Lawrence in particular set a number of spots aside. So I'll be curious to see with the lottery if we're going to see more students or less students.
Is that why Essex Tech went up so much?
Because, it really.
No, Essex Tech went up so much because they, it's kind of, so that this was between fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. Fiscal year 25, it was under budgeted. And so you're seeing a huge increase. Essex Tech is a very unique situation. They have special legislation that allows them to take students from any community. And so we do see a lot of students going there. Typically, let's say we have a student who wants to go to Shawsheen. They wouldn't be able to go to Shawsheen unless they could show that we didn't have the core programs that they want to take. Essex has special legislation that overrides that. So we end up having quite a few students who go to Essex. General government increasing by about 3%, public safety by 5%, public works by 2.68%, health and human services 3.49%, culture and rec 3.59%, shared services by about 3%. I'll get a little bit more into the departments as well as the benefits, et cetera, as we move forward. This is a breakdown of what the budget expenditures look like. And every year I say the public schools show us 51%. It's really more around that 65% when you look at the employee benefits, et cetera. But we want to show it in the buckets that we have it.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Sorry, why did the capital expenditure go down so much?
Like it went from 7.8 million to 1 million.
So I'll take it if you don't mind. So the 7.8 is actual expenditures, so all the free cash articles that we have at town meeting are included in that number. The 1 million is just the amount we budgeted in the levy, so because we don't have those other articles,
Okay.
they're not actually spent yet, so this is just the
Okay.
operating budget. But
Okay.
in order to make the fund balance work and all the other buckets work, you have to show all the expenditures
Okay.
within the general fund.
Thank you.
So next year, when we show fiscal year 26, fiscal year 26 capital will be in the actual line. Okay. So this chart just shows the expenditures by function by year. Kind of just an interesting, different way of looking at it. One of the things that kind of struck me is just how static and stagnant some of the categories are. Like you can see that employee benefits grows, but when you look at something like public safety or public works, they're really staying kind of that same size block. So I like to break it down, as you all know, by both percentages and by money, because I think people like to see it in different ways. And so this kind of just tells you what those spending increases look like for the different divisions. If you remember correctly, the shared services, that's information technology for both schools and town, it's procurement for both school and town, and it's facilities for both school and town. All right, so just going to go through a few of the kind of highlights and changes. Like I told you, there's really not much, so it won't take very long, but we have employee benefits increasing by 6.3%. Health insurance is going to go up by about $1.5 million estimated. So the GIC meets tomorrow and then again on March 3rd to set what the plan will look like for next year. So it will be kind of interesting to see. One thing, kind of as perspective, I'm just going to go back a chart so I can show you. The municipal budget is only going up by $1.1 million. In health insurance is going up by 1.5. And so really unsustainable moving forward. And I have a chart later on that I'll show you just how much our insurance has increased the last few years, but we're certainly not alone in the problem, but it certainly is a major issue.
Yeah, it's still something we have to figure out.
Yes,
Yeah, whether
100%.
we're alone or not.
No,
matter.
it's just not sustainable where it is right now. And like we say, you know, if our budgets can go up 2.5% and employee benefits increase by 6.3%, something's going to give because that math's not working for me. So we're working on that. I'm on the GIC commission, as you know, so it's been kind of an interesting struggle, I think, this year. But we're working through it, and so we do have a vote tomorrow.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I noticed like how much it was going up, so it's like 18% from FY 25 to 27. Do you have any idea what 28 is going to look like? Like, is it?
We don't yet.
Too early.
Yeah, we don't yet. I mean, so we have been budgeting around 10% a year. What I will say is we've actually been more insulated than a lot of other communities because we're in the GIC. So we have more spending power because the GIC is so big. It's all the state employees. So many municipalities have joined it. There's 30 additional municipalities that plan to join this year because in Western Mass, they had their own regional health insurance. And they had to have special town meetings, and their insurance went up by over 20% last year. So, and they got that information mid-year. And so it's been a very difficult budgetary year for health insurance for everyone. Maya, which is the other insurance that a lot of the municipalities use, is going up by 12. So it's been hard.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense either to have all those municipalities joining it
Yeah.
and having it go up. It's like there's something seriously broken. I mean, that's why we joined the GIC.
So the governor's created an affordability task force, which I'll be interested to see if they come up with some ideas of ways to make some cuts. The one big thing that we're focusing on tomorrow is the GLP-1s, and so it'll be interesting to see what the vote ends up being. So that's where we are with that. This is the 5th year of the Finance Committee reserves at the $1.5 million. We have a 3% negotiated COLA for town employees. There's no new initiatives or employees, and we have one less full-time employee. So I'll show you a little bit more about that here. So we did have to make, it ends up being about $800,000 in cuts. I've highlighted kind of what are the biggest ones. We cut in assessing salaries. There was a reduction in information technology. There's a $9,500 reduction in the town clerk's office. So basically, we had budgeted to be able to have a special town meeting if we needed to. If we do have to do that, we'd be coming to see all of you for the Finance Committee Reserve. We have a reduction of 1 employee in my office. So as you all know, my deputy town manager, DKC, became the town administrator. Thank you. I couldn't get that out in Wakefield. And so we've decided not to fill her position. So we have a vacancy that we're not filling there. We have a $125,000 reduction in police and a $150,000 reduction in fire. $72,000 reduction in DPW. Unfortunately, that does also include the composting program at the schools. So that's something that we're working through right now. $160,000 reduction in facilities, and then just a kind of a reduction in educational opportunities for employees, and then a reduction in employee benefits, mostly in the insurance side. This is a chart that shows our full-time equivalencies over the last few years. And so you'll see that in fiscal year 25 is the year we brought out all the new tradespeople in facilities. And so that's the change we saw there. If you remember correctly, we took money that we were using for outside electrician, outside of HVAC. It's actually been We have some vacancies in the department now, but it's actually been very successful, and we saw a lot of cost savings this year, and so we're looking forward to continuing that. This chart just shows historical North Andover public school spending. I will add, just in '25, looks a little funny because that's the year that we took the utilities and facilities and put them into shared services. And so about $1.6 million is missing from that year.
Yeah, what's the gradient shading?
Yeah.
Because there's two legends,
So
but three colors.
These are all actuals. This is all budgeted. The last four. I don't know why they're different colors.
Wait, the last four
The last
are the
four,
budget
yeah.
number?
So 2024 is.
Yeah, because I was like,
Yeah.
I was trying to
Yeah, I do, yeah.
think that didn't look right.
But they do look kind of funny, all different colors, don't they? We'll fix that. Dennis didn't make that one.
But the point
Don't you
is
know?
the FY '25 is not
Yes.
what we actually spent.
Yeah, and so it's not, it's hard to, so the fiscal year '26 also does not include the facilities, right? But it looks like there's such a small increase between '24 and '25.
Right.
I just want to, and it looks like it's a huge increase between '25 and '26, so I just want to make sure people realize that there is a discrepancy there. I wonder if I can redo this chart and add kind of a little block to, let me work on this one. I'll send it to you for your meeting on Monday. This is the historical health insurance numbers. So again, like I told you, we have prospective health insurance going up more than the municipal budget, which is tough. We currently do have, though, 47 employees in our opt-out program. So that's forecasted to save $522,000 for fiscal year '26, which is amazing. It's been really successful, which we're excited about. We rolled that out 2 years ago now, and the schools have taken great advantage of it. So it's really been a good cost savings. And so when we negotiate our next agreement, that's something that we'll be trying to keep and perhaps even enhance to try to attract more people into. And the way that works right now is that you have to have bid on our insurance for 2 years, and then you can opt out once you show that you have somebody else's insurance, that you have coverage. So one of the things that we talked about a lot at the tri-board meeting is that currently our budget is not sustainable in its current form. I mean, you could see that just by looking at the amount of cuts that we had to make to try to fit ourselves into what was available. We hear it when we talk to the schools, and so when we did this shares budget, one of the things that we said to our department heads was, put it in, and we're going to say no to you. So just know now, it's going to be a no, but it would be good to know what you would want if we decided to go forward for the 28 override request. And so these are the kind of things that people have been brainstorming, and these are subject to change, but you know, the fire department, if you remember when they did their 5-year plan 3 years ago, and we ended up getting the ladder lieutenants, their next step is the inclusion of 4 captains. We've actually negotiated with the union the ability to create those positions. We would need funding for them. The police would be a deputy police chief, and then one of the case managers right now is being funded through a grant, and so making that position permanent instead of having it expire. DPW would be funding for road work, and so we'd want to do a permanent increase to be able to do additional road work. The problem with funding for roads right now is that Chapter 90 has been at around $825 to $850 for the last 15 years-ish, and it's cost a lot more money to do every mile of road now than it did 15 years ago. And so even though we're still appropriating the same amounts of money, we're able to do as much work as we used to be able to do. The youth center, they have a social worker there that is also grant funded that we would love to make permanent. In facilities, we would want to bring in a skilled carpenter position. So one of the things that we've learned is that we have an electrician, we have HVAC, we have plumber, but if we want to hang a door, we have to have somebody come in to hang the door, right? So it doesn't really make sense. It's like those small things, right? And so that's something that we would like to work towards for fiscal year '28, and then obviously the school's needs as well, which I'm sure they will talk about. And then just, you'll see a separate article about the sewer enterprise fund. For those of you that don't know, basically what happens is that users pay into the sewer, and we keep that money in a separate accounting and use it to pay only for sewer expenses. And so these are our sewer expenses for next year. And then same thing with water. Really no major changes in either one of these either. And then this is our reserves. So walking into town meeting in May, this is what we would have. So our stabilization account, which is the general stabilization rainy day fund, is at $6.8 million. Our sewer retained earnings, which you remember correctly, are the free cash of the sewer fund. is at 5.1. Water retained earnings is at 2.8, 2.9. We have the capital stabilization account, which, if you remember, when we first brought Amazon on, before the TIF went into effect, because we knew that was going to be, money was going to go away, we kind of scooped some money over into there so we wouldn't have to use debt to pay for some of the facility master plan 2 costs. We're at 5.7 there. Our OPEB trust is at 7.3, and our free cash was certified by the state at 9.5. And that's it for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any
Absolutely.
questions from the group? I know we asked them as we were going, but we'll go around and see what questions.
Can you hear me, Regina?
Mentioned it, why did the local receipts go down from 16 million to 13 million, from 25 to 26? Was that the interest rate you said?
Yeah, so we, hold on, sorry, let me get to my expense,
On page 3.
yep. So that's the actual amount of local receipts that we received in '25. What we budgeted, and so that would include things like if we got exorbitant building permit fees, or let's say that we got a bunch of tax title that came through. That's what we actually received in fiscal year '25 and local receipts.
But the biggest components of those, if I may jump in, the biggest components are gonna be building permit revenue and investment income above what we budgeted. Those are the biggest drivers of the difference.
Does it normally fluctuate that much?
It's, so, it
Yeah,
can,
it's just budget.
yeah, it can. It has in the previous few years because we've had huge building permit fees for Amazon. We had the electrical fee and the building permit fee that came in. And then we did some tax title that we hadn't typically done. And then our interest income, Kim was doing such a great job as treasurer. Her investments have been amazing. But we anticipate that will start to kind of calm down, which is why we
Yeah.
tempered it this year too.
This is a conservative estimate.
Mhm.
And the only other thing that was more of a comment, because I remember last year, that's when I jumped in. I first joined when we were at this phase last year. I know the fire, police, water, and facilities, they all kind of gave up a little piece, to make the budget work a little bit better. And it looks like they're getting reduced again this year.
They are.
Is it getting to a point where it might be an area of concern, like they're cutting back too much? I know we've got planned for 28 that we could go possibly for an override, but I just don't know, is it, cutting your nose off to spite your face?
So I would say that it is not sustainable if we want to continue to grow the way that we are growing. I'm just getting to the cuts. What we're cutting here in police is overtime and capital request that was under the $50,000 that would typically go into our capital budget. The plan is to ask Merrimack and Brooks for that, like we did last year.
Okay.
Not for the overtime, but for the capital request. In fire, the reduction is, I believe, all capital. Remember?
No.
No?
That was the captain.
Oh, yes, okay. So the chief had been carrying a captain. Originally, if you remember last year, we had 2. We lost them. He had put them back in. We reduced them again.
Okay. One more.
Sorry, say that again. Is that a head count? Because is that the one less full-time employee that you mentioned
The
about?
one
I
less
thought that was
full-time
your office.
is D, yes.
So- Right, so.
This is something that he had in his
He
budget.
requested it. Okay.
Yeah, he had it. We took it out last year in order to meet our budget number. He
Right.
put it back in again this year, trying to put it back, to refresh it, and we took it out again.
Yeah.
Well, can I just ask a question on that? You, and I don't really care, not that I don't care, but I just so I'm clear, in your slide on a potential override, you had, you said, inclusion of 4 captains. So would that really be 2 captains?
Because
Or
he's-
would it be 6 captains?
It would be 4, because we've taken them away twice now, so
So-
yes, it would just be the 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
the reason you do 4, and he would kill me if he knew I was talking about this, because I can't speak to it anywhere near as eloquently as he can, but it's because you want to have a commander on all the time.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate, yeah. No, that makes sense. I just, in my head, I couldn't determine whether
Yeah,
that
it's
meant
4 total.
it was, okay.
Since we're talking about the cuts, what about the reduction in the DPW? What is that really
So
comprise?
about 35,000 of that is the composting program,
Oh, okay.
which we are equally very sad about. It's a very popular program. that is run through all the elementary schools, the middle school and the high school. But with making the kind of reductions that we were making in the budget, I didn't feel we could continue to carry $35,000 for that.
How does our current weather situation impact?
Oh, boy. So we are deficit.
to ask.
No, we are deficit spending for sure. We've been deficit spending the last two storms. Walking into this storm, we were already 500,000. More? More. We played a game this morning where we kept going, it's over $1 million. Maybe it's going to be 1.5. We were playing this game this morning.
I mean, because we haven't received the bills.
Because we haven't received the bills
But
yet. Yeah.
We were well over $500,000 before the last two storms, so.
Yeah, so it's not great. What I will say is that we're still under a state of emergency. So we are categorizing all of our expenses because the state will collect them to see if we meet the county thresholds. I don't know if we will. It's like $3.6 million per county for public-only costs. So we're working on that. We'll see.
Is this something that you could come to the finance reserve?
Yes,
for?
we certainly would.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank goodness for a little reserve.
Yeah, I mean, we are hauling today too, so we're hauling from the snow out on Main Street and on Water Street. Just because pedestrian-wise, is a nightmare if we don't.
Yeah.
So that adds to the expense, but hopefully the state of emergency will help, we'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
Last question, when was the last override? Do we know?
I was gonna say that's.
Yeah, there's a chart on
That's
the,
us, honey.
That's us.
Yes.
yeah, there's a chart on the website that shows every override,
Yeah, but
and
that's what we did.
when the last time one passed and which ones didn't pass. I can forward it to you.
No, that's all right, I just was curious. Thank you.
It's been a very long time.
It's around then, sorry.
Yeah, it's been a very long time.
I know something a little odd. I was comparing the police budget and the fire budget, and there's a line item for holiday pay.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the police, it was budgeted at 77,000, and for the fire department, it was budgeted at 438.
Yep.
438. So
There
is
can-
it just how
Contractual.
it's
It's
set up?
contractual, so,
Okay. It's just broken out
no,
differently?
nope, some of the, police officers take in lieu ofs instead of the holiday pay, so they actually can get additional days off. And so they don't always take the holiday pay. The fire department does not have in lieu ofs, and so they 100% get the holiday pay. And that can fluctuate by year depending, especially with the fire department, depending on which shifts are on for which holidays,
Okay,
so.
all right.
Fire payroll is not something I would ever want to have to do in a million years. It is
No.
very
It was
complicated.
just a little
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah, so that's
All right,
why.
thank you.
Mhm. Am I saying anything on that?
You good?
Okay.
Any other questions?
Regina, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Thank-
I'll be
thank
back, I'm sure, like all of our other articles, so I'm happy to. Yes, I'm gonna keep fixing those colors on those graphics, and you can let me know what you need.
Enhancing all of my boring charts.
It looks awesome, it really does.
Melissa, thank you to
No
your
problem,
department heads
of
for
course.
all
They're
their
the
work
best.
on this budget. I know this is difficult when
It is.
they have
They
to
are.
make cuts. so
They're the best, they
appreciate
really are,
that.
we're very lucky, so. Ooh,
Fourth year.
For the fourth year in a row.
I know,
So,
it's hard.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, moving on. Now we have Superintendent Lathrop to
School department needs 3
present
people.
us the school budget.
So I Googled it while we were sitting here.
You're the Google Meet person in here. She did have a question. And
I'm so sorry. No, we can't hear her.
You can't hear me, right? You can't hear me?
Are you connected to her? No.
No.
No. We can't hear her out here.
I can hear you, but you can't hear me, right? Oh, okay.
Mm-mm.
Can you, no? Hello? 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 No.
She could hear us this whole time,
Okay.
I assume?
Yeah.
Because I could join the meeting so that I can.
I can call her tomorrow.
Or she could email you or text you the question.
Yeah.
and we can-
Nancy, just, well, we do have a meeting next week on
Okay.
Monday for the purpose of us going home and digesting all of this and then being able to ask questions next week. So hopefully we can get to Nancy's question next week.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent Lathler.
Hi.
On to you.
Yes, thank you. So with me tonight is Gil Dowd. She's our interim finance director. And I'll just start by saying you've been seeing our monthly reviews of our financials this year. And I really want to applaud Gil and the team that she has, that the work that they've done put us in a really good place for this year. And you'll be receiving, what month is this? February's as well. And then Joe Hicks, everybody knows Joe, the chair of the school committee. So my date on my slide is way off because I'm just sharing with you what was the FY27 superintendent's recommended budget. This budget has gone through the budget process with the school committee. The school committee did pass it, so it is now in the school committee's hands.
It passed it as you're presenting it tonight? No
Correct.
changes?
No
Okay.
changes. So this is from school year 24-25, but I think it's important to look at, these are the students that we're educating in North Andover. These are the students that are in the seats that come to our buildings every day. I just think that this is something to keep in mind. This comes from the Department of Education's school profiles.
Was this changed recently?
I wouldn't say it has changed recently, but I would say that it has changed over time. That's definitely, looks a little bit different than it has in years past, and some schools. So what we have done is had our principals also look at their own schools individually to see what that looks like. So in the student populations, just so you know, that high need students, that entails students who are English learners and low income, and students with disabilities make up that number. These are the budget priorities. This were like the budget directives that the school committee set forth to me and our team when we were making coming up with our FY27 budget. So there were really 4 buckets that we looked at: fiscal responsibility. Obviously, that's something that we're all really concerned about, making sure that we're keeping within the parameters of the town, the needs of all of our learners, that we are paying special attention to special education, literacy K-5, and equity and access to all of our students. Instructional quality, you probably have heard us talk a lot about high-quality instructional materials and making sure we continue to have a focus on that and professional development, and that our school improvement and our district improvement plans are aligned, and safe and supportive schools, so that we have appropriate class sizes, that our facilities are safe, and that we have supervision for our students. So these are really the 4 buckets of the 4 drivers that we were considering as we were putting together. Oh.
I guess we can hear Nancy now.
Yeah, sorry, I just coughed. I'll go on mute. Well, good that you can hear me now.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Thank you.
When we developed the superintendent's recommended budget. So what this budget did, what I said this budget would do, it was going to preserve all of our services. So we were able to maintain all of the current services we have right now and programs for students. It maintained the class sizes with a slight reduction at our middle school. For special education, that was a priority. So we prioritized the support and the programming for special education students. Transportation, it's addressing transportation. We are going to be reducing some crowding on our buses and some route efficiency with FY27. And then early learning, so prioritizing some early learning initiatives to build a very strong foundation and investment to increase overall spending in all of our individual school budgets. So these go right back to those 4 buckets. Really, when you think about special education and in terms of early learning and that early literacy. And some of this comes from some of the audits we had in our school district. We had the Urban Collaborative come in and look at special education. The school committee has their own subcommittee of special education, and we were drawing on some of the recommendations from both of them. So this is what our financial allocation looked like for FY27. So as you know, FY26 this year, our school budget is $69.2 million. We originally received a budget increase of 4.05%, which was $2.8 million increase. From a conversation with town manager and talking about some of our curriculum needs, we were able to increase that by $200,000, which brought our FY27 budget to $72 million, which is a $3 million increase. $72 million too, which is a $3 million increase from FY26. This takes a look at the salaries and expenses. This will show you that our salaries and expenses, what we're projecting for FY27. So about 59.8 million for salaries, almost 14 million for expenses. Now, again, this is the recommended superintendent budget. So when you put your salaries and your expenses together, the budget that I recommended to this school committee was $73,705,289. Feel free to ask questions along the way, I should have said. So the budget had some recommendation in staffing. So this budget shows an additional elementary teacher. I'm not sure if it's in here. Sorry, it's not in this slide. This was the review. But we have a bubble at the Franklin School. So Franklin has 4 classes of first, second, third, and fourth, and they only have 3 classes of 5th grade. And we don't have any other reductions of, like if you would look at maybe kindergartners going into the elementary schools, that number stays the same. So we have to add an additional 5th grade class at the Franklin School next year. This has a proposal of 1 middle school teacher. If you noted, I said earlier that a slight reduction in class sizes at the middle school. The middle school has particularly in related arts, struggled with some larger class sizes this year. I'm not saying that this is going to definitely be a related arts teacher. We're still working through that, but we are dedicated an additional teacher to the middle school. There's an addition of 3 special education positions. These 3 positions, 2 of them will be focused on the RISE program. The RISE program is for our students with profound autism, and the RISE students are our district program. So we have a program at the ABECC, our Early Childhood Center, and we have a program at the Franklin School. So 2 of those positions will be to support RISE students, the RISE program in both of those schools. And then the 3rd position would be what we consider a general special education teacher. Again, I don't know exactly where that person will be, because what we do in the spring is we look at our number of IEP students. We look at students who may have put on an IEP, students that may have come off an IEP. Lynn O'Neill, the Director of Student Services, or Director of Special Education, she will start to think about where she might need to reassign teachers. But we do know that there is a need in special education that's been very clear in all of the work that we've been doing.
Sorry, quick question.
Sure.
By adding all these special education positions, are we able to reduce the outplacement that's happening?
No, I don't know if it's in this budget, but we have in this slideshow, but we have seen a reduction in out-of-placement students. It's not here. I probably could pull it up if we needed to find it. Just in terms of over the years, we are trending to moving downwards. I think what these 2 particularly teaching positions in the RISE program will do is to stop students from potentially going out. It wouldn't bring students back in. It could. It always can bring. We have had that happen. But sometimes when students go out, they are out. What this does is it continues to build capacity within our Bill schools.
So sorry, it's 2 RISE teachers, and then what was the other one?
The other one is a general special ed teacher to support special education throughout the district.
Will we be bringing in out-of-district kids to our RISE program?
We do not.
We do not, but I mean, would that happen with the new situation?
No, I can't see that happening. We have a large population of students who participate in the RISE program. We do tuition in students for our multiple supports classroom, and we have some students that we tuition in there. I'm never going to say no. If a school district did come forward to us and they had a student that they weren't able to, they didn't have the programming for, I think we'd always have that conversation. But this isn't building an opportunity for us to sort of advertise that. This is taking care of students that we currently have.
It is nice to be able to have the capacity to handle the students that
Right.
reside in North Andover, I agree.
And I say 3 special education positions because it may not be a direct teaching position. It'll be a special education position that supports students in those programs, which we probably are contracting out for now, or getting services from an outside agency right now that we will want to be able to have our own people,
Yep.
which would be
Makes
much
sense.
less expensive.
Yes.
The addition of 1 assistant principal at the ABECC. So the ABECC is our early childhood center. We have had retirements in the past that we have not, that have retired, we have not filled. some of that position, that person that retired, stayed on in a part-time work with us, doing some of the work. But we're finding that, early literacy is so important, and the work that we're doing within the Early Childhood Center. Our Early Childhood Center is seeing a lot of success in early literacy, particularly in the kindergarten. We talk about things like dibbles and scores at that nature, but those students are well prepared in kindergarten. We want to continue to maintain that. We also want to start looking at our preschool programming. We have a great preschool in North Andover, but the state is pushing us towards having a really defined curriculum, looking more towards high-quality instructional materials. The ABECC is our second largest elementary school in the district, Sargent being the first. And so every other school has an assistant principal, and the need is there.
Can I ask a question while we're talking about that? So I noticed just a little bit, it's only slightly, but the enrollment's gone down from 25 to 26, specifically in the kindergarten and pre-K. So, it's only by 30 each year in each grade or so. Do you know, I know kindergarten enrollment hasn't started, but I was wondering, do you have any sense, and I don't know if you can tell from the census, is it the age of the residents getting older?
Yeah, it
Or
was just
is
a
it
weird, it
kids
was
going
just
out?
an interesting year. So the students who are currently in first grade or kindergartners last year, we had one of the largest kindergartens we had in a long time.
Those are the COVID babies.
There you go. So I don't know what this year is going to look at. We do look at the census. Sometimes it helps us, sometimes it doesn't help us, to be honest with you. But we will start kindergarten registration in March, so I'll have a better sense of what it's looking like.
Melissa, do you have any sense of it, if is North Andover getting older? You know what I mean? Is it people staying in place, not moving, that kind of thing? Is that?
Birth rates are down.
Yeah.
Yeah, our enrollment in general has trended downward. So, I would anticipate that what we're anticipating is what we plan for, is holding where we are right now in kindergarten for next year.
I didn't know if it was are they going out to other places? When you do that report or whatever, is that going up? If you look at the kids going to the tech, Essex Aggie,
Yep.
There's a lot. It's a big increase.
Yeah.
Is that happening in?
I don't
pre-K
think
and
so.
kindergarten?
There's always some opportunities. Some families may choose to do private kindergarten for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's extended day, sometimes there are some work advantages that people have for kindergarten, but I wouldn't say that by and large we're losing kindergarten students to private school.
And is pre-K half a day?
Pre-K varies. So
Yeah, okay.
what I was going to say about pre-K is that we have a preschool program so that we can meet the needs of our students with special education. And so that will vary based on the amount of students who need special education services. Students come to us, I think, when they're age 2.8, 2.9 is when they start to move from early intervention into a preschool program. So we do have full-day programming for some students who require that, and then we have paid program for students, which is a half-day. Do we have a paid full-day program? I don't think we have a paid full-day program. But then we can only take in as many peers, we call them peers, based on the amount of, we have a ratio of students that were in those classrooms. So one of the things that we'll be doing in a couple of school committee meetings from now is looking at all of our fees. So we will look at our preschool fees. We did raise them 2 years ago. They had not been raised in a very long time. Okay. So all of the, just a little bit off subject, but all of the areas in in the schoolhouses that have fees, we'll be making a presentation to the school committee about sort of recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, sorry, you were just asked a question about kindergarten enrollment, but is enrollment down for FY20? Are we expecting it to be down for FY27 than it was this year?
I'm expecting it to be about relatively the same.
Same.
With we have that one bubble class of 4th graders moving into 5th graders, but I'm anticipating it to hold about the same.
So understanding the ABCC is the second biggest elementary school, so you're adding an assistant principal. How does it compare in terms of overall administrative positions to the other schools?
So it
Curriculum
would,
coordinators, things like that.
correct. So at the ABECC, there's one principal, Dr. Goddard, with this position, they'd be an assistant principal. The ABECC, because it is also, because it's preschool, and that's a special education program, we have a special education program coordinator that works at the ABECC. So it helps with the early, she fosters that bridge from early intervention into the public schools, and then monitors special education in the preschool and the kindergarten. Keep going. Okay. The addition of 3 teaching assistants. Now, these 3 teaching assistants are not necessarily new people. These people currently are working for us. You never quite always know the needs of your students. Sometimes you have students that move in that require some support. So we added 3 teaching assistants as long-term substitutes this year out of the budget line item of a long-term substitute. Those students are staying with us, those needs continue, so those 3 positions will move into the budget, the general budget next year, because they will become permanent positions. So that's the addition of the 3 teaching assistants. I have proposed increasing the daily substitute rate to $125 in order, sorry, sometimes my Connecticut accent pops out, in order to attract substitutes to North Andover. It is a little challenging. We do not pay quite as well as some of our neighboring towns, and we find that sometimes substitutes will sign on with us and then they will cancel their position if they receive a job in another town. So we have had some trouble with substitutes this year, so we're hoping to be a little bit more consistent.
So does $125 bring us closer to or level with?
It brings us closer to.
Closer to, but still a deficit there.
We're still a bit lower. So a lot of places will have a range, so they may have, where I worked before, if you were a retired person from the system, we paid a little bit more because sort of the expectation was you already knew what to do here. You could come in and you could basically start teaching. If you had a degree in education, those substitutes are paid a little bit more. So there's a scale. Some districts will use a scale.
We do not.
We do not yet.
Okay, yes, I like that. I like that only because I see the value in the scale
So
as
do
you
we.
just described it. So I have, this is a couple questions here. Just out of curiosity, what, either in terms of percentage or real dollars, what is if this budget goes through and you're at 125, what is the deficit still? Is it $25 an hour or a day? Is it 50%? Can you ballpark it or no? If you can't, that's okay. I'm just curious.
I think what we've been doing is benchmarking it. So we've looked at this as a multi-year approach to look at our structure compared to peer communities, surrounding communities, to look at what might make sense as far as, do we do tiers, do we do building-based subs where you get a sub every day that they're there, they commit to it, does that get a slightly different rate? So this is our first foray to start to get ourselves in line with others while we do additional research to say, how did this help? What are some other strategic ways we can look at it? So we would expect a multi-year approach.
Great. I think that's terrific and smart. But I guess what I'm asking is, what's the difference still? I'm just curious.
Close. I don't want to guess off the top of my head. I mean, I could go back and look, and I certainly can get that
No, but
answer to you.
close.
But
That's
I think
helpful.
we're
Okay.
close.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Oh, and then, no, you know what? I don't need the second question. Never mind. Good,
Okay.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. This budget also has addition of an elementary library support staff. So our last, what are we in now, fiscal year 26? In fiscal year 26, when we made some of our significant cuts, one of the areas that was significantly cut was elementary library. And they're finding it challenging to sustain the libraries because it's not just about teaching library science and helping the students select their books. There's a lot of work in terms of putting the books back on the shelf, reprocessing, and what our librarians need to do, and they are supporting multiple libraries. So we have, in this budget, we have an additional library support staff. It would not be a librarian, but it would be somebody to help support all the librarians in the district.
I'm just curious about English as a second language. I see there's no change or addition, but on the previous slide, there was quite a few English as a second language, English learners. Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty large percentage.
It's gone up.
And yeah,
It's gone up
up.
incredibly. So, and we have, yes, I would say, when you talk about override, a potential override, what are the school needs? I think that's an area that we need to focus on, is our English language learners, our multiple language learners, ESL, however, there's multiple ways it's referred to. We, right now, are fortunate that we have a strong group of teachers. We do have a Merrimack Fellow, so we invest in the Merrimack Fellowship Program, and so we have one in for support in ESL for next year, and then we use Title I funding as well. So we do have a Title I like paraprofessional that's working in one of our schools that has a larger proportion of students with English as second language needs.
Title I is supposed to get cut 10%. Is that what I heard yesterday? But EL has gone up from 3.1% in 23 to 26. It's 5.4%. So it's gone up a lot.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that significant.
Yeah.
Thank you for the numbers.
Yeah.
I have anecdotal knowledge just from being around the district, but.
As
okay.
one of the things that Kristen Ando, who is our assistant superintendent for teaching and learning, she oversees our reading teachers. So as reading teachers potentially retire or move on to other positions, we are posting for reading teachers who have a reading certification and a certification, an ELL certification. So it's our goal to move just not to move anybody out, but as folks move along, to hire people that are dual certified. And then we're also encouraging our folks that are current reading teachers, if they're interested in becoming dual certified.
And one thing to note as well is students who are multilingual learners do receive specialized services because of that sometimes, but also as teachers, we're all supposed to be able to provide those services in a different way in our regular classrooms too. So it's a little different than thinking about how you might staff special education in terms of the hours of the teachers and what goes into that. ESL just it works out a little differently. So students will be in our regular classes, and if I'm teaching history, I'll have a student that's a multilingual learner. I'm capable of also teaching them at the same time in specific ways. And we do have certificates, or we're supposed to go through that as licensed teachers in Massachusetts to build that, which is different than what we might do with special education.
That's helpful, because I was kind of wondering, how do you make the choice? Well, we're going to do a special education, position instead of an English language learner position. I mean, they both are needs. How you
we
choose.
do need them.
But maybe that's
not to say we don't need it, but the staffing does work out a little differently.
So that slide that we just went through was looking at staffing for FY27. This slide looks
I'm sorry,
like
Pam. Sorry to interrupt. Can I just ask one question before we
Sure.
move off of that slide? I was going to ask, and you partly answered it, and you mentioned the one library position, but how many of those positions that are shown there, the ads, were actually positions that were taken away in the FY26 budget? Or any of them kind of one for one, we took a position away, now we're adding it back, or not?
Yes, so I don't have the list in front of me, but we cut over 32 positions last year. So we certainly are adding back an elementary teacher that was a cut. We're adding back a middle school teacher that was a cut. We're adding back, we don't think we cut any special education positions last year. The assistant principal is a new position. The teaching assistants, we didn't cut any teaching assistants last year, but we cut 17 the year before that. So there's ads there.
So it sounds like most of them are not kind of one for one replacements of people that were reduced in this current year.
So what's new is the elementary teacher would be like a one for one. The middle school teacher is an add back. The teaching assistants would be an add back, but the special ed positions and the assistant principal are not.
Okay, I just kind of want to make a comment that I think as a community we kind of have to wrestle with this, up and down, back and forth, and I'm sure there's a lot of efficiencies to be lost when we eliminate a position and then add it back in another year. So just kind of wanted us to be cognizant of the losses when we do that.
I understand that. I also want to say, though, I think that some of the work that we're doing is really trying to look at efficiencies and look at what are the needs of our district. That's why we're drawing on the audits that we have. That's why we have a strategic plan in place. I can talk about that at some place. Because I'm not looking to, I mean, nobody is, but like to take something out, put it back, and cause a disruption. What I am looking to do is, we had a really challenging year, and we had to make really hard decisions, and we took a lot of things out of our school. And now, as we're thinking about what we need in our school, it's important that we do that really sort of, that real strategic plan, so that we can say, these are the things that are going to help our students to progress in their learning, to meet some of the challenges that we had before, and to hit the targets that quite honestly, that the state is asking us to do. So even with all of those staffing, we weren't hitting our targets. So there is always, I'm not saying that the staff, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have it. What I'm saying is, we need to make sure that when we put it back, we're putting it back appropriately, and we're addressing the needs of the district.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of forced a reckoning a little bit with what are the really must-haves.
I think so. I can't quite hear you, so.
Oh, okay. And I just have one other quick question. I think it's fairly obvious, but I just so we can be a little bit explicit about it, because I didn't see explicitly mentioned in the presentation. But this is assuming that we continue with the 4 elementary schools, correct? No, we're not obviously moving kids back to Kittredge at this point, but I just want to be explicit about that.
That is absolutely true.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. Sorry, one more question. Is the special education population of students increasing? Or is the distribution of students amongst all regular ed and special ed staying the same, but we're finding we need more educators on the special ed side?
So I don't have Lynn O'Neill's presentation in front of me, though. She did a special education presentation of, she did a presentation to the school committee about special education. What I can tell you is that our rate of special education students in North Andover is higher than the state average of special education students. We are working, and we have put, since Lynn has come on board, she's put a lot of things into place in terms of addressing the needs of our students. When we went through this, Lynn called it a metamorphosis. She's sort of the butterfly story. But we went through this last year. She really did an audit of all of our programming. We did some redefining of our programming, some changing of teachers, some looking at what makes sense. So our goal is to potentially bring that number down. I mean, we want to be able to support all of our students and what they need. And I still think that we're sort of dealing with the ramifications of COVID from students who didn't have direct learning. But we are higher than the state average, and we would like to bring those numbers down if we can, which is why we want to invest in early childhood literacy, so that we can meet the needs of our students younger, capture those needs. It's why we do some of that early literacy testing, things that you'll hear us talk about, DIBELS or MAP testing, so that we can sort of catch it sooner and support our students, because that then won't potentially need an IEP.
In FY20, it was at 30.2%, and now it's at 38.4%.
How are you getting all these numbers?
They're all online. I was looking at
You did your research. Okay. Tell me that again.
That was just the high needs. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
High needs is a combination
Yeah,
of.
sorry, that was high needs.
Yeah.
So special ed, it was FY20 was 15.9. It's now 20.9.
I was going to say, I thought we were in the 20s,
Yeah,
and we're slightly higher than the state.
Oh, wow. When was the 15%?
That was in FY20. So I was just kind of going back to COVID.
Yeah.
And like
okay.
pre-COVID, post-COVID, that kind of thing.
Which is why you can see when we go back to that first slide of where's our buckets,
Right.
really looking at the needs of all of our learners, but special education and early literacy are two big drivers there because of where our needs are right now. Okay.
I guess
It's
I
okay.
ask one more question.
Sure.
I did look at the MCAS achievement presentation that you all gave, and there's been like a 3-year trend down
Mhm.
in performance. How did these additions look to rectify that, not just at the early childhood level, but also middle school and high school?
That's a big question. So I don't know that I can say that these positions are going to rectify that. These positions are going to meet some of our needs. I'll be honest with you, I think that when the strategic plan is complete and when we share the overall, the larger needs of our district and what we would potentially need in an override, those are the things that are going to be the drivers to help us increase achievement. We also are continuing to do a lot of great work in North Andover. It is hard, right? When you bring in new curriculum, when you are doing all the right things, right? When we are really a district that is very forefront in high quality instructional materials. Many districts come here to look at our model. Sometimes our teachers or our program coordinators will go to other districts to help them. But then you don't see those results in the testing. It can be challenging. But things don't happen overnight, and we have to remind ourselves that. And I think that we're not as focused on really drilling into what are the specific needs of our students in order to raise the achievement. That sort of goes hand in hand with the answer that I said before, where I'm not just going to put back what we cut because that didn't necessarily seem to be meeting all of our needs.
Can I also add, thinking a lot about the assistant principal at the ABECC, the good work that's happening at the kindergarten level right now, you don't know the results of that for this year's kindergarten for 4 more years when they go into 3rd grade, because we don't see that, they don't get tested with MCAS until then. We are seeing a lot of improvements in the work that, our own internal testing through the DIBELS, through the MAP test, that we are seeing some really important gains. And we're a few years into our adoption of some H2IM that we don't necessarily see the impact of right away, because it's a process they have to go through. Teachers have to learn it, students are still learning it, and we do know that on the other side, it will be better. And the middle school and the high school, they're starting that work now.
Yeah.
So that also will take another year or two to really see some of those changes. So it's
tomorrow night, and then the next school committee meeting after that. So tomorrow, K-5 administrators, along with Kristen Ando and the curriculum directors, will present a review of the K-5 data. And I think what the difference is that North Andover has been really good at collecting data. What we're growing into now is interpreting data, making decisions based on data, and informing our practice based on that data. So what you'll hear tomorrow night is the talk about the work we're doing with the Hill for Literacy, the work that we're doing in terms of data meetings, what progress monitoring is. So any student who is below the benchmark has a plan. So we know every single student in elementary who is below the benchmark, and every one of those students has a plan to get to benchmark, which is different, which wasn't happening.
And one other thing is 4 years ago, I think we introduced Haggerty at the kindergarten level. Early literacy, phonemic awareness work, it's great. Those kids are just going to be starting to do MCAS this year. So we saw a lot of important gains internally then. They're only getting to the age where we might now start to see what the impact of all that work is. Well, we'll find out in October. So it is slow. It's never fast enough for me either.
And the reason behind the assistant principal at ABEC is also because ABECC has had a lot of great successes, and we do a lot of talking from kindergarten to 1st grade, but there still seems to be some gaps. So one of the assignments she's working on now is really observing what's happening in 1st grade, making sure that we're planning appropriately for our students who are in kindergarten, what's happening in kindergarten that we can't replicate in 1st grade, and why can't we replicate those things, and then having that conversation between 1st grade teachers and kindergarten teachers. Thanks. You're welcome. In terms of expenses, we have an additional $175,000 for technology. That's to start to look at the replacement of our Chromebooks. We have not done that in a very long time, and it's time for that to happen. We have an addition of a general education bus. Our buses are slightly overcrowded, and as I said, some of them are on longer routes. Predominantly schools that have been affected by that this year are Sargent and Franklin, but it has affected us throughout the district. So we did make the decision to reallocate some grant funding to the general fund. So we've all talked about grant funding and whether or not it's going to come in the way that we expect it to next year. And so we have reallocated $100,000 to out-of-district tuition and $150,000 to out-of-district transportation. There is in this FY27 an increase to athletics based on the current trending data. So that's sort of based on some of the fees that we had proposed, that we did increase, but the revenue didn't match some of the spending. So we have made an increase to the athletic budget. And then increasing the per pupil allocations in each of the school budgets. So that is something that we did in FY26 when we had to make some of the significant cuts. Our school building leaders have been working with lean budgets this year, and we'd like to give them some opportunity to, once you make a school improvement plan, to have some funding in order to support the plans that you have put in place within your building. So if you remember, I said that this proposed budget was $73,705,289. So that is over the $72,200 that we have from the town. So how are we going to bridge that gap? So what I proposed to the school committee is that we, in FY26, we anticipated reimbursement of $2.5 million to be received during FY27. We're proposing to utilize $1.5 million of the anticipated $2.5 million to cover the gap for FY27, leaving $1 million in circuit breaker reserves. You've heard us talk about this year in our financial reports, and Gail can certainly speak more to this, about us carrying over a year's worth of circuit breaker if we can, and building up our circuit breaker reserves. This doesn't stop that process, it just maybe moves it along a little bit slower than what we had anticipated. I thought you were getting ready to talk, to use $1.5 million of that to meet this budget. So what this budget doesn't, so as what I explained to the school committee and to our folks that came to listen, is this almost $74 million budget is really next year only 72.2. I mean, whatever increase we have on the budget is 72.2. The 1.5 million doesn't get added to our base.
Right, but you are spending over what the town can.
Correct. We're self-funding
provide.
1.5.
And you have full confidence you're going to get that 2.5 million? What?
Full confidence.
Yes, full confidence.
So this is based on assumptions looking. When you sit close. You can never say full confidence. We do not control the governor's budget. We do not control the funding of it. This is based upon looking at historically what our claims have been and historically what the reimbursement is. This does not assume that they are going to be funded at the full 75%, because that has been, even this year they did not, but then the supplemental budget put the money in there. So we were conservative in it, so we do feel comfortable that we would. So what this does, and we've worked really closely, I will thank the town for working with us as we worked through this, is ideally you want to be able to have a year of circuit breaker in reserve. And the reason you want to do that is for situations like this, where you do have a year where you need some additional funding. So basically we'll be using this year's circuit breaker and a portion of next year's circuit breaker to balance it. And then we would anticipate having additional money going into the next year, so that we're still continuing to build a reserve. We just won't be at the 100% yet. So it is a strategy that we can use, that we are comfortable with it based on what we know.
So I don't want to, I had put the, on the agenda to talk about the January 2026 budget update that you send us, which thank you very much. I very much appreciate that sending. And it wasn't because I wanted to discuss the whole thing in detail, but specifically around this circuit breaker funding. Yep. Can you just help me understand how, like, where you say for this year we're using FY26
So what
circuit breaker
happens
money?
For this year, we actually were very fortunate. We had a couple of things really go our way. They did, at the very end of last year, there was additional circuit breaker funding that was released that came in. I don't even know if we got the money at the end of the year. It was the beginning of this year.
Beginning of this year.
Timing-wise, we weren't going to use it last year. We were able to utilize it this year. Also, our claim was higher than we had anticipated, and the reimbursement was higher than we anticipated. So our circuit breaker that we had budgeted was lower than what it actually came in at. So that's what's allowed us to preserve some of it going forward, is that funding came in higher than we anticipated.
But when you, so in the parentheses where you have a fiscal year, are you saying that's the reimbursement that you got from like FY '25?
FY '25s that we received in FY '26.
And you received it in FY '26. So
And
how,
we have a full year to use it, so we can actually carry 100% of this year's reimbursement into next year. You have a full 2 years to use the funding.
okay, so what is listed here as 3.3 million FY '26 circuit breaker?
The 3.1.
3
It ended up coming in at 3.1.
Okay, yeah, sorry,
because-
3.1, yeah, okay.
So we're working towards building all of that up to be able to carry that forward for next year. So we have that amount of money that we've included in the budget, and we would be taking money from next year's.
That was the question. So this 3.1 in circuit breaker from this year's budget is already baked in and
Correct.
into,
The anticipated carryover of the 3.1. We were anticipating carrying forward about 2.1 of it. That's what we built into
but
the
that
budget.
2.1 is part of the 72 million?
It's part of the 73,705.
Does everyone else understand this, or am I
So
just
the
nuts?
way, so this is like the
Sorry.
easiest, so basically the easiest way I could think to explain it is, and I'm gonna use really round numbers, these are not the numbers that are in the budget. So say you anticipated your out-of-district tuition was going to be $5 million. In the budget, I would have 5 million, but then I would offset it with the circuit breaker to bring down the amount of money needed in the general fund to
Oh.
pay for it. So that's
Okay.
why when we say it's embedded,
Okay, okay.
it's embedded. What I will be doing, we will be doing, is embedding an additional 1.5 offset within the budget to take into account.
But so you're embedding in this budget 73.7.
Is
You're
the
embedding this leftover carryover and
the 1.5. And the 1.5 is what will get us down to the 72.2 million.
Right. Okay.
But getting back to the
Some
budget
manipulation.
for town, you're saying next year's budget will be based on the 72.2, but still, you will be spending the 73,705. I mean, so it's not like those things
We
will
will-
disappear. You will
Correct.
still have that.
That will be on our needs for the FY,
Yes.
for the
It's
overall.
Okay.
came down.
Yeah,
Yes,
I,
it's
yeah,
basically to help us get to
Mhm.
FY '28.
And then they're potentially going for an override.
Yes.
So I think everything is kind of like, okay, we
It's
can
aligning.
make it through another year.
Yeah, no, I see,
Utilizing, yeah.
but it's still actual spending, though.
Right.
I mean, it's actually what the school needed this year, is the 73,705.
Right.
And that's what is being spent.
It's actually more.
Yes.
Yes, because it's
Yes.
already embedded.
It's already
in
embedded
Right,
in
well,
the
right,
the
exactly.
circuit breaker and grant funding,
Okay.
so it can get very complicated
What?
because there are different sources.
Just to
Yeah.
make sure I understand, going into FY '27, you plan to carry 2.1 million in circuit breaker reserve. You're gonna use all of that, plus 1.5 of the new
Plus the
circuit breaker
1.5
money,
of the new-
leaving now a reduced reserve of $1 million.
Which I will say the positive part of that is your reserve coming into this year was 0.
we had no reserve. So
We've never had
I do
reserve.
wanna
So it went
acknowledge
from
that
0
we
to
had-
2.1
Yeah.
to 1.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So,
But which is how
I understand.
circuit
Just-
breaker can be helpful. So we started at 0, built it up, and
Serious roller
we're
coaster.
here.
okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, can I ask a question? So I had asked Dennis for a roll forward on the reserve, and I only got it, I only saw it shortly before the meeting, so I can share it with the rest of the finance committee, but that showed about 600,000 in the reserve as of the end of '25.
I'm sorry, on which reserve?
The circuit breaker reserve.
Oh.
Dennis, you recognize that? Is Dennis there?
And I want to say that ties into, we received additional funds at the end of the year that was last year's that we received.
You receive it
this
the year after.
So it was timing of when we received the money.
Okay, so I'm sorry, just so I can be clear then, so that was as of the end of FY '25. So at the end of FY '26, what is the projected balance? Is there one?
At the end of FY '26, we,
2.5?
2.1, when I did is the carryover that was embedded in the budget. So we would end the year with that in reserve. We built it into the budget. And then when next year's money comes in, we would be using 1.5 of this year's reimbursement that we receive next year. And if you think historically, we were gambling how much the reimbursement would be that we were building into the budget. We were making the assumptions, and that was all the circuit breaker funding we had available, whereas now we have the carry forward plus. And ideally, when you get to a steadier state, you budget fact certain because you know how much you have. Once you have that full 1 year in reserves, your budgets in the outlying years become a little bit easier because you're budgeting fact certain, which is why communities work to get the 1 year in reserve.
I think it might, I don't know if anyone else agrees, but I think it might be helpful to see, kind of, see it on a spreadsheet, like what the FY '25 balance was, what FY '26 ending balance is projected to be, what FY '27 projected balance would be, with all the, if the 1 million gets used, or 1.5 million gets used as requested. Would it be possible to get something like that?
We can, I think, high level, we sort of did a bullet point on this one, where if all of this played out the way we're anticipating based on the information, again, I will always put the tagline, this was based upon information back in December when the budget was prepared, so everything changes. So we would anticipate having, at the end of next year, $1 million to carry forward into FY '28.
But just to be clear, if the outplacement costs or the transportation costs or all the things that have happened over the last 2 years,
Yeah, but I
where we
think
have
we
these
also have
increases, then
budgeted
that's
differently, right?
gone.
So over the last, it's hard for me to answer these questions without saying that I don't think that things were done correctly.
No, that's okay. That's
fine.
They did,
Yes.
we get it.
But,
we all-
right, so, I don't want to be judged on that, because I feel like that I hope this year is showing you that we have the right people in the right seats at the right time, who are budgeting differently. So you always can get an unanticipated student or something that happens, but I am not anticipating that anybody that we have in district is going to be a surprise to us because of the safeguards that we have in place.
That's good.
I will say, you go back to our original, the directives. Thank you. So one of the things that we did very differently this year in terms of the school committee that I think is important to note is that we have always done budget directives. We got rid of most of them that we had historically carried over, and we started with a blank slate this year in terms of defining what it is that we want the budget to do. So this is very different than what we've had in the past. Last year's budget directive, the first thing was it had to fall within the town manager's recommended budget. Like, that was the thing, right? And that was a very clear direction that we as a committee gave to the superintendent, and she did that very well. We ended up with multiple things, but that was one of the things that we said. And we have been hyper vigilant in monitoring what the spending is this year and making sure that they are coming in, the school department is coming in at that budget, and we are still below. And you'll get a new update after tomorrow. We're still tracking very, very well to be on that budget. This year, our priorities were, we want a budget that reflects what the needs are of the district. What is it that we need to do to make sure our kids have an opportunity to learn at the spaces that they, in the best way possible? And that's the task that we gave the superintendent and her team, and they did that. And we, as a committee, have signed off on this budget because that's what we feel is what our district needs right now. We also recognize that, hearing the other presentation from the town manager beforehand, like I also see that other departments are being told no, right? And I understand, like,
For multiple years now.
yeah, and I totally understand that, and that's hard as an entire community, the thing that we then have to value. From my perspective, as chair of the school committee, my number one priority is always going to be the schools need it first. Like, that's just who I am. I'm not going to shy away from that. It's what we need to make sure that our kids have the best chance possible in life. We are also, and you kept using the term, potentially going for an override. I understand why that's being used. As a school committee, when we voted on this, it was very clear that we are advocating for an override, that we go for an override next year. Like, as a committee this year, that is a stance that we have taken because we think that, yes, this is bigger, but that we need more. That the schools have been underfunded in ways, and yes, mismanagement and things in the years past, but that we need to rectify that. The 2.5% deal that we are limited by from the state by law has to be rectified every couple years. And we've gone a very long time since we've done that as a town, and historically, like, towns just have to deal with that in some way. And we think that next year is a time that we need to do that. And not everyone will agree with us on that, but that is a stance right now that I have taken, and the school committee has said as well.
So, Joe, let me.
And yes, one last thing is, yes, it's sad that we have to say no to some of the other departments. We also had to say goodbye to a lot of people last year and the year before.
So, a couple things. Number one, you mentioned that first on your list in the last few years for budget directives was to spend within but you didn't, right?
Well, this year we are.
Right,
so
but
that's
I'm
why
saying,
the
you
last
said the last few years, the number one thing on your directive was to spend, but you didn't.
Well, let me rephrase. The last year in November of '24, that was the directive that we gave the superintendent. Yes, the years before, not true.
Right,
absolutely.
okay, fair, that's, yeah. And listen, I'm not, it is what it is.
It's a true statement, I'm not going to argue with it.
Good, okay, so here's my sort of dilemma. I appreciate that you guys have built this up with the full-throated intention that you support an override. What happens if it doesn't happen? I mean, what safeguards have you guys built into this budget so that we don't go off the cliff if I appreciate that your perspective is for the kids at all times. And I think as a committee, we've demonstrated that we are right there with you over the last few years when times were tough.
Yeah, you have been.
But we also have to look at this decision from a complete holistic fiscal perspective.
Yep.
And I'm just concerned that I don't see safeguards built into this budget at all if we don't get an override. I mean, this seems to be, and please correct me if I'm wrong or misrepresenting, throwing all the chips in the pot and
I wouldn't say we're throwing all the chips in the pot. Like, we're increasing the reserves, right?
Definitely, but if we don't get, but we are. Well, they are increasing the reserves from zero, which is what they were.
Their reserves are going down from last year to this year.
Look, I don't disagree. I agree with you, but I understand his perspective. Is all I'm saying. But my problem is you are increasing the reserves, and again, from that perspective, it's great. But if you don't get the override, where do you go?
Fair question. I will say this: the necessity of an override is rather important to the school department and to the rest of the town too. We if we don't get it, we will see things like class sizes go up dramatically, right? And we've worked we got rid of a lot of people last year, and our class sizes went up, and we're holding steady at a place where we can do the work that's good, right? We would have to say goodbye to more people, and our class sizes would go up higher, because we're talking about salaries, right? We know what the ramifications are, and that's the case that we then have to make to the town. And over the next year, we then have to think about, like, if it doesn't happen, then what are the plans? In terms of, like, what we do next year, I want to make sure we give our kids an opportunity to learn, and the key additions that the superintendent has identified are important, are like regaining some positions that we had to say goodbye to. Some of them we're already funding in other ways that we want to make permanent, and I think it's really just the assistant principal at the ABACC that's really a new position, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess to answer your question, so I would have presented the same budget, and we would be in a place, I would have asked the school committee to accept a budget of 73.7, and we would be back asking for more money.
Yeah. No, and again, I'm not.
I understand what you're saying, because this is the problem that we fell into before,
Yeah.
right? This
One-time
district
funding.
hired positions during COVID, and
Right.
then they didn't plan for those positions and put them forward in, and that's how we got in the place where we were.
I
Again,
wasn't going to say that explicitly, but yes.
No.
yeah, so
we're
I'm
in the
just going to
danger
say
of
it for
one-time
you. I
funding.
get that,
Absolutely.
right? Like I have said to people, I understand, right? I understand the magnitude of the decisions that I suggest, or the decisions that our finance or the teams suggest. And I also understand that there's a responsibility to be able to move forward, and that's my job, that's Gail's job. I feel as though this year we have been very on target with what we have planned for, and we have been able to do some really incredible things in our district. And I know it's hard to say that I believe just what I said, we have the right people in the right seats at the right time. And I think that if we don't get the override, then townwide, we're going to have to make some just tough decisions, because it sounds like to me, if we don't get the override, then fire and police and some of the municipal parts of our town are also going to drastically suffer.
I agree.
So I think at this point, I feel that we have to make these modest increases to our school district in order to stay on the roll that we're on, and to look at some of the deficits. We have deficits in our school district. We are not performing at a rate that this town and these students in this town should be performing. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of that is test-taking strategies, the ways that we may prepare or think about that, but some of it is how we're preparing our students and how we're supporting them. And I feel like, I often say, sometimes when you want to clean the closet, you have to take everything out of the closet and put it back in. And I feel like I've emptied the closet here.
I would agree. Listen, I will say from a personal perspective, because I don't want to speak for everybody here, but I agree with you. I think you have the right people in the right seats at the right time. I have complete confidence in that. So just to be clear.
I understand.
Just to be clear, 100% confidence in that. I am a little nervous about the structural way that you're doing this, because it does seem to replicate past.
Well, in the past, there was no money. So let's remember, in the
That's
past,
a
we
good
put
point.
positions in
You're
that had no
absolutely right.
funding source
In
for
the
them.
past, we didn't know that we
Right?
didn't have
And
no
so
money.
now we
You're
have a
right.
funding source for them, and we still have money left over.
And that's why I say structurally, right? Or theoretically, maybe is a better way to say it. But because I agree with you, because you have the right people in the right seats at the right time, you have rectified that part of it. There is no doubt. And that gives me, again, me personally, confidence, 100%. Which is why I focus more on my concern is, and by the way, I agree with everything you said in terms of the right focus and the deficits we have and addressing them. In my core being of every fiber, I agree wholeheartedly. But when I put my finance committee hat on, I have to look at this holistically. I think to myself, oh dear, if we don't get this override, we're up the creek without a paddle. Now, again, on the town side, I believe we have the right people in the right seats at the right time, and
Agreed.
I've said that for years. And I believe that together, all of you will figure it out and how to get to down the creek without the paddles and the boats deflating. I have full faith. But I just wonder if there isn't a little way, and maybe I'm off on my own island here, but if there's a little way to hedge a little bit in this budget towards the panacea not making the panacea. That's all. That's my only point, I guess.
Can I ask a question real quick, or make a comment?
Maybe
I'm not
I-
sure, I'm not quite sure.
No, you're
No,
good.
I
It's-
get
they're all
I
good
get what you're saying.
questions.
So, isn't this the last year of the teacher contract, and it's going up 4%, correct?
Correct.
Right? So what is the negotiated rate for the following year? Has it been?
Hasn't been,
It hasn't been.
we have to open
Well,
collective
we have open
bargaining.
bargaining
So,
in October.
I mean, I don't know, and it's not that they don't deserve it, but 4% is unusual from my experience, right? Is it? So you're gonna have potentially not as much of an increase, if it's not 4%. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
It's not gonna amount to all that much money. It's probably just a couple $100,000, I don't know. But at least it's not gonna go up as much as it is for next year. Does that make sense?
I don't think we can count on that.
Yeah, that will be the result of negotiations that will take many, many months, starting in October.
Just to speak to what we did, and I understand the guardrail, believe me, that's just
Yeah.
what I do each day.
Every day.
I think, all day, every day. The least liked person in the district.
You're loved.
I think you're amazing.
I really like this.
I think what we did is we were also tasked with looking at, I can't believe I'm going to say that, all of our sources and uses of cash. Don't let Dave Brown know I said that. So we were very strategic in looking at this, saying, if there are funds available for the school district to utilize, we want to make sure we're looking at everything. Do we have safeguards built in? We made assumptions on what our claim's going to be and what the funding is. Ideally, it's from everything, all the preliminary items that are coming out, it appears as if the governor's budget will fund it at higher than what we anticipated it. So we were also conservative in our numbers. We were also conservative in how we're looking at our grants, because I do not have a crystal ball. I do not know what the federal grants are going to do. So there is opportunity that we will potentially be able to continue to build up the reserve if all of our assumptions
Right.
come in better than we're predicting, because we assumed a decrease in our IDEA
Right.
grant. We don't know that.
That's
so
fair.
if that does not happen, we will take a hard look at what we're spending our grants on. We're not looking to change what we're doing. We're being conservative. If the governor's budget comes in at the 75%, that would be additional funding that we didn't anticipate that will come in when we get our reimbursement. So I think we were conservative. We don't want to paint ourselves into a corner, but we did feel that that is what the circuit breaker is meant to do, is if you do build up the reserve, that is what it is there for, that you
Use it,
can
yeah.
utilize it.
Yeah.
So we feel, and some of the items that we brought in don't necessarily need to repeat year after year. So we also were very thoughtful about how we were doing it when we came up with it. So I don't know if it's answering the question, but I do
No, listen,
feel
I think
we thought it through. There are bumper guards, but I can't predict what the federal government or state government.
is
is going to
and if
do.
you could, I wouldn't want you in this position.
I wouldn't
You should
be sitting here.
Right,
I
no,
would
you'd be making
probably
money
in
some other way,
Florida
right? No, I
on a
get it. And look,
beach.
I think, again, I'm just gonna speak for me. I have confidence beyond belief that you guys are doing it right, and you're doing it well, and your intentions are phenomenal. Your plan is, what you're striving for our district is awesome. I get it. I
hear ya.
Look, I think if you ask my wife, she would say I have this fear about about our own fun. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always afraid it's gonna fall off a cliff. That's just the way I'm built, and I blame my parents for that.
And I think it's well-founded, like, we did fall, like, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. Like, you're not wrong, and like, we did have some bad things happen, like, absolutely, and we had to come to you for money from the FinCom reserve 2 years in a row, and like, right, absolutely, yes. And I completely understand your position, like, your job as a FinCom is to look out holistically for the entire town, right? Yes. My job on school committee is to advocate for kids and for our schools.
100%.
Like, and I'm gonna do that till, and like, we're gonna not, or we might not agree on, like, those two things will sometimes come into tension. But my job is to say, these are the things we need because our kids need it right now. And I was very happy when we had this presentation that the superintendent came to us, like, what the number was for the town manager's recommended amount, what her budget is, what her recommended budget is, and a plan to bridge that gap.
Yep.
And not be, and we'll ask you all, like we are able to do this for a year and for these things because of the great work that they've done this year.
No question.
Like, that is the reason why
Yep.
we're able to do it.
And I think if something, knock on wood, especially when it comes to special education, because we always say you're one out of district placement away. We actually, I think Lynn and I might as well share an office. We meet almost daily now we're student by student, placement by placement, dollar by dollar for wherever the students are placed, as well as the transportation. So we're also in a much better position. If something happens next year for the positive or the negative, we can say we anticipated this. This is what has happened. We had a student move in, that's residential. We had a student move out, that was residential. So now we're able to really track all of the information. So I think we're at a much better place to be able to speak to it. Again, you're asking us, all of us, to budget however many months into the future based upon what we know today, so.
Okay.
Basically, last slide.
Sorry.
No, it's not. You know what? These are good questions, and they're questions that probably lots of people have. So I hope that, I'd encourage people, and in our newsletters to watch this meeting, because I think it answers a lot of questions. FY27 superintendent's recommended budget was about 60 million in salaries, 14 million in expenses. My budget came in at 73.7. Recommended using circuit breaker at 1.5 million, but the recommended budget to the school committee was 72.2.
And that's what will go in the warrant.
I was gonna say, that's what will go in the warrant is 72.2, and then,
We did this in,
okay.
we wanted to be fully transparent. So if
Right.
there's a flaw, we wanted to make sure we were very clear we worked with the town prior to doing this. We talked through the pros and cons, so we wanted to be very transparent with the community as to what we were doing as well, because
It's
I
appreciated.
think that's great,
Yeah.
yeah.
One of our efforts to be as transparent as possible at all times with everybody.
You gotta give it a shot. It's appreciated, it
Yeah.
really is, and it's obvious.
Very
Questions?
much appreciate all the explanations. This is, can be difficult to understand, and obviously, we have some, let's say, maybe difficult concerns to address, so we appreciate you addressing them. Any other questions? I think we exhausted them.
No, but can we bring the town manager and the finance director back up? Because I have a question that I didn't ask them prior, that I now remembered, that has nothing to do with the schools.
All right, thank you very much for this
Sorry.
school's presentation. Great.
I got to 9 o'clock, I gotta go.
I know. I did tell them that we'd be done by 9. They could shut the heat off then.
It's time for my sleepy time tea.
I know.
And this won't be long,
I'm just teasing.
I want to be responsive to a couple questions that I got. Can you talk to me about, or not talk to me about, I don't remember, and this could be a Denovan problem or Denovan issue, which normally 9 times out of 10 it is. I don't remember Fire Station 3 being part of the plan,
Yep, you're right.
right? And now it's sort of in there, and I haven't heard any discourse or discussion about it. So I'd like to understand a little bit more. Like, I have no problem with another, like, if again, to me, if the fire chief says, I need another fire station, like, these things don't just pop up at him, he's got data and reasons for it, which I fully, but.
And he would love to come here and tell you all of them.
Well,
'Cause I've
maybe
been
just
hearing
have him
about
call
them
me.
for a year
No,
now.
but again, I don't. My question, please don't misinterpret. Which I know you won't. But people at home don't misinterpret my question as not being supportive of Fire Station 3. Like, I'm all for it. I just need to understand where, because people have asked me, where did it bubble up from, seemingly out of nowhere?
There's a lot of misinformation, I think, about that. So Facilities Master Plan 2, which is a living, breathing
Yes.
document, like all of our capital plans are, right? Includes Fire Station 2 renovation and addition.
Right. That's what I remember.
And what the plan was at that time, and have a different chief than we did then, so obviously there's more discussion and changes as we do that. But what the plan was at that time was to do a full renovation of Station 2 and put additional bays on.
Right.
And as we kind of thought about the design of that, we realized we were really stuffing an awful lot into a very small space. We're like, this doesn't make sense. And so the chief came forward and said, for the last 25 years, we've been talking about the need for a station down on 114. It's where our nursing home calls are, it's where Royal Crest is, it's where Merrimack is, and our two other stations are so close to each other, right? It's interesting. In this town, we built everything within a mile. We were like, forget everybody else. So
That's why it's called out country.
Out country, yes.
Those of us that live around here are fine with that, by the way.
Exactly. You can walk to anything. You could be at every school. It's amazing. So it's been very interesting. And so what I said to the fire chief was, I will be supportive of talking about Fire Station 3 under two kind of scenarios. One, you find town-owned land that's appropriate, because we're not buying anything.
Yeah.
And so he went and sat down with planning and went through kind of everything we own, which is hilarious. Like, if you put town North Andover into our GIS system, things come up that you're like, what? Like, it's just stuff that we've gotten over the years. They either were donated or were tax titled 50 years ago or whatever it is. So he went through that process. And then I said, you have to have a plan for Fire Station 2. Because we came forward, right, and said Fire Station 2 has terrible conditions. We need to fix those conditions before we're going to break ground on Fire Station 3. So they have now feel that they have come up with a plan for Fire Station 2 using actually all donated funds. They just replaced a window this week as like their kickoff, basically, of that. And then they have this proposal for Fire Station 3, and I actually think we went live with the website for that yesterday, which has an FAQ and preliminary plans and everything. And the chief is planning on going on CAM, and I think taking his show on the road an awful lot like when we first presented Facilities Master Plan 2. It is very, very excited to talk about it with everyone. And so I anticipate that Fire Station 2 will be probably its own article at town meeting. Fire Station 3 will be its own article at town meeting. And so he will come before you and all of the other committees as part of the financial articles to kind of, and he's very excited about it.
Good. Well, again, I think it's great, and it makes sense to me, at least as a layman. Conceptually, it makes sense. I just, like I said, a couple people have asked me, where it came from, and I have to admit that I didn't quite remember. So thank you.
And I'm sorry, the budget for that is all in FY27, the design and build
Design was last year, fiscal year 26.
for Fire Station 3.
And so finance this year is just no. This year was just for construction, and so the other rule was that we would talk about Fire Station 3 if he fitted into the money that we had allocated for Fire Station 2.
Nice.
And so Fire Station 3, it's not going to be fancy, right? It's not going to have a lot of bells and whistles, but it will allow us to have an ambulance and our fire suppression equipment.
Was that one of those projects you gave him thinking, there's no way?
A little bit. I was like, this is my 3 rules. You have 3 rules. And he did it. It was very impressive. So he's at the fire chief's convention this week. But he's already called me like 3 times with, it's in Worcester, to talk about things about this project. He's very excited because it's also a portion of it at CPC.
Great.
Because they're changing the driveway to get to the fields behind from Berry Street.
Yep.
Oh, great.
So you're going to be hearing a lot about Fire Station 3 because it's CPC as well.
Okay. Thank you.
I think it'd be
thank
great
you.
to have something out country.
I agree.
Those out country, so those residents can get faster service. So that's awesome. Okay, thank you everyone
Thank you.
for staying
Appreciate
so late. I know this was a late meeting, but I really appreciate all of your presentations. Very thorough, and I know a
Yes.
lot of work went into them. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so
I would move acceptance of our minutes from February 2nd, 2026.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Nancy, are you there?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, that's,
I would move that we adjourn.
Second.
all right. All in
Did you
favor?
have anything?
Aye.
Aye.
Nancy?
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.